A lot of us want to say that Dave Filoni saved Star Wars. Star Wars has had a lot of tumultuous times. I can remember back during the prequel era, a lot of Star Wars fans were not satisfied. Here comes Dave Filoni, in collaboration with George Lucas of course, and they co-created the Clone Wars animated show, which effectively saved the prequels, or at least the plot holes that it created. So when people nowadays say Dave Filoni saved Star Wars, I think he saved it a long time ago and is continuing to save it, because with his new recent comments that he made to Empire magazine, it's quite clear that Star Wars will live on forever and ever, and we're gonna get content. Not saying that we're gonna get a lot of great content always, maybe perhaps there's gonna be a mishap here and there, but according to Dave Filoni, he never wants to stop, and these comments made it abundantly clear. Initially, he reiterated the fact that he loved George Lucas, of course, who doesn't, the creator of Star Wars itself, and he talked about how George wanted the galaxy to feel fully fleshed out and well established. That's already been the case because Star Wars has lived on the test of time. It's been now 40, almost 50 years that Star Wars is still relevant for sure. I mean, just contrast it with other sci-fi material or other franchises that have long been dead or are dying currently. However you feel about Star Wars, it was better then than it is now. I can guarantee you that all of us Star Wars channels are still getting views and a lot of fans, content out of it. Then I'm sorry, but it is still relevant, whether you want to accept it or not. This is what Dave Filoni already knows, and he knows that with each narrative, the chapter of Star Wars will get a greater tale as the years go by. The original trilogy was what it was. Dave Filoni recognizes that. But ever since the prequels, Dave Filoni, I think, saw the potential of expanding the galaxy further than George could ever imagine. He spoke to Empire magazine and explained why the Star Wars timeline is a perfect fit for his own storytelling approach. More specifically, he even talked about The Mandalorian Season 3 and how he approaches the stories. He went on to say, "In a lot of what I've done, I don't like hard endings. I like reading books in a series and then thinking, oh, there's another book and this is going to keep me going. It's always sad for me when an adventure ends and the characters are seemingly done with their journey. So I think there's always that little bit of hope that something can continue. I think things can continue on and your adventure continues every day. I used to think about it with Clone Wars all the time. When is the battle over? Question mark. When is that struggle over? Because it culminates in Revenge of the Sith? But that can't be the ending for that show, even though that's the ending of that era, meaning the Clone Wars. That took a while to figure out." And of course, with this quote, Dave Filoni certainly solidified his writing style. Whether that be the Clone Wars animated show, which in the final season, when you thought the story was over, now comes Tales of the Jedi, which explained Dooku's timeline, and also Ahsoka after Season 7 as well, how an unnamed Inquisitor found her and how she continued to evade the Empire after Order 66. And even if you thought her story was over then, she escaped the Empire, no, we still see her as Fulcrum in Star Wars Rebels. Years beyond that, we get to see her in the Book of Boba Fett, The Mandalorian, and now in the Ahsoka show. I honestly can't wait for that. I'm so excited for the Ahsoka show. And I know that Dave Filoni is going to take this Star Wars era into a completely new direction that is going to be so great to experience. But the amount of self-awareness that Dave Filoni shows here in this quote from Empire magazine, I mean, he quite clearly becomes attached to his characters. You can see that with Ahsoka Tano. He then struggles to let them go. And what do we get out of it? Unending stories. Magnificent, great stories in some aspects. Sometimes, I gotta admit, yes, I am a little chilled out from some of the stories. Specifically, I talked about in the latest review with Omega, with the Bad Batch. It's kind of crazy that the Bad Batch have taken a back seat into their own series, because whenever the Bad Batch is not present and we see Commander Cody, we see Captain Rex, even Crosshair and Rampart had their plot points that were very interesting. The moment the Bad Batch enter into the factor, it ceases to be amazing, great adventures into the galaxy. But again, unless Dave Filoni wrote out the story that the Bad Batch will perish some way, somehow in the end, because we don't see him in Star Wars Rebels or ever, after this series, then this is when I think Dave Filoni considered the story to be finished. Death means it's over. If they haven't died, then we can clearly see that Dave Filoni thinks about it in a different approach. Doesn't mean that their story ended because they're not in this series or in this story, or simply you thought that it ended. It's still going to continue. Another character I could say that Dave Filoni has used this with a lot has been Captain Rex, obviously. He started with nobody knew Captain Rex back in the day when the Clone Wars animated show started, even the Clone Wars animated movie. Interestingly enough, Captain Rex's story has never ceased to amaze us from that point on. The Clone Wars animated show made us fall in love with not only Captain Rex, who we knew nothing about, he was a clean slate. The Clone Wars animated show, Dave Filoni was able to make us fall in love with Commander Cody, who we visibly saw years before gunning down Obi-Wan Kenobi during Order 66 in Revenge of the Sith. We already had preconceived notions for Commander Cody. We hated him in an aspect, but then we loved him in the animated show, even though we knew what he was about to do. Now that we see he has kind of been redeemed in The Bad Batch, again, you can see that the story continues in The Bad Batch with Captain Rex and even with Commander Cody. What Dave Filoni is definitely trying to say here is that Commander Cody's story is not over at all. This is what I get from this quote. Even though Cody has gone AWOL and we haven't seen or heard of him these past episodes, he is still out there, and sooner or later, Dave Filoni will revisit his story. What a great quote from a great man. Thank you, Dave Filoni, so much, and thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed, leave a thumbs up down below, subscribe for dailies. Now you have an awesome day, Star Wars fans. I'll see you in the next video, and may the Force be with you. Until then.